Kate McKay, and welcome back to Survive to Thrive. Today, I am absolutely over the moon about introducing my guest, Chandler Bolt. Welcome, Chandler.
Kate, great to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so psyched to have you here. So Chandler, I am going to read his bio, and then I can't wait to get in. I'm going to put my glasses on, as I always do. So Chandler, here's his bio. Chandler Bolt is the CEO of Self-Publishing School, selfpublishingschool.com, and the author of six best-selling books, including his most recent book titled Published. Self-Publishing School is an Inc. 5000 company, the last 2 years in a row, as one of the 5,000 fastest growing private companies in the US. And I am happy to be a part. Chandler is also the host of Seven Figure Principle podcast and the Self-Publishing School podcast. And through his books, podcasts, YouTube channels, and Self-Publishing School, he's helped thousands of people write their first book, and help me, Chandler, get my second book to bestseller status. And I couldn't have done without you. So welcome to the show.
Hey, great to be here. And I'm looking around because I know I've got your book. Yeah, there it is, right up there on the shelf.
Thank you. I appreciate you. And you can certainly show off your books too. So our title of this conversation is really why now is the time to write a book. And, you know, in the midst of this craziness, now let's just get real, like right now, boom, everything is ground zero, right? And so why is it, number one, how are you managing right now? I'm really curious as you're growing this amazing company and it's gone so well. How are you managing it both personally and professionally in the growth of your companies?
Yeah. So, I mean, the biggest thing that I've been messaging to my team is, how can we get better because this is happening, not in spite of this happening? And so I think we've all got an amazing opportunity to take this time to plant seeds in our future. And so that's why I really believe that, for two sides of the coin are, two kind of separate paths. That's why I believe that now is the best time to write and publish a book, because for years, people have been saying, the biggest excuse that we hear is, I don't have time. Well, guess what? You've got time now. And so it's a gift, because we can use that gift to plant seeds for our future and to get your book done. And then I think for us as an organization, just one thing I've been, and just leading my team, trying to refocus the team on is, how do we get back to the basics? And so we're only doing one of two things. It's does this get students signed up, or does this get students results? And if it doesn't have to do with one of those two things, then we're not doing it. And so how do we laser focus everything that we're doing on those two things? So I think that's the opportunity for people is to get back to the basics. And again, how do we make sure that we come out of this and we are better because it happened, not in spite of it happening?
Well, that's a beautiful way to describe it, because as I was talking to you before we hit record button, is that I have been parts of many, many programs, because I'm old, and I don't even want to know how old you are, Chandler, because I know you a baby. So, all the programs that I've done, yes, great information. Sure, information, we can Google anything, but really what your company is all about. And I'm a lucky one that I'm part of an accelerated program that Self-Publishing School and Chandler has developed. So not only has it helped me produce a best-selling book, but has also provided me actionable tools to build a platform to grow my whole business through the book as an addition, right? So actionable tools, that's what you're about.
Yeah, we want to help people. People at the end of the day, people pay us money to help them achieve a result. It's we talk about this in the accelerator program, is the four P's of a great offer. It's who is the person, who is the person that's the best fit for this? What's the pain that they have, right? The pain that they know that they have, or the problem that they know that they have. What's the promise that you can make them, and what's the price point that you can charge for that? And so, but at the end of the day, they are buying for the promise, or the result, or the benefit, or whatever you want to call it. But they're purchasing to help get somewhere, and the mechanism doesn't matter. It's, can you help that person achieve that result? So for me, and I think this probably comes from being, a C-level English student, college dropout, and someone with ADD is like, just make it simple. And the thing, I think I drive the team crazy about this, but I am always asking, anytime they bring me anything, how can we make this more simple? How can we make this more simple? How can we make this more simple? Okay, could we trim 25% of this? Like, how do we make this more simple? And so that's our goal when we're working with people is how do we simplify the steps and make it the fastest path to results?
So efficiency. So how did you come to that? Because clearly I'm ADHD or two. So how did you come to that? Because I think for me personally, growing up with ADHD, I just never fit in, Chandler. Like I was always felt like it was like, sit down, stop talking. You know what I mean? Like I was always like this because I was like, I wanted to get to the result. And it wasn't that I was rushing necessarily. I was excited. So I think that that's kind of like we measure this ADHD as a dysfunction, but I think personally, we just have Ferrari for brains.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's quick thinking, but it's a bias for action. And so, ironically enough, I think I learned a lot of habits from taking Adderall for a series of years. Is like, I cut out a lot of things because it's like you're just really laser focused when you're on Adderall. And I think you teach your brain and you teach your body what's possible. And then I'm so glad I got off of it because it was like a productive robot. And so I think I'm able to be myself again. So by no means am I recommending that people take Adderall. But I just know that was helpful for me.
How long were you on it? And then when did you stop?
Yeah, I was probably on it for 3 years, probably like 2012 to 2014, I would say, something like that. And I guess I've been off of it probably since, I think it was, like maybe January of 2015. So 5 years.
Did you learn? Did it help you though? Because I did the Ritalin at I figured out I was ADHD in the 40s. And I took the smallest dose of Ritalin. And what it did for me was it took away my monkey mind. So that's why it worked for me. It almost like righted me like, oh, okay. It took me out of the repetitive thinking. And that's how I used it when I was on it. And then I broke bad habits.
I could see that because, I mean, the way I would always explain it to people is like when you have this massive to-do list and not on Adderall, it'd be like, oh my gosh, I got so much to do. How am I going to start? What do I do? Like you just start spiraling with Adderall for me personally. And that is so funny because I did not think this is where this interview was going to go. But here we Chandler. Are. Adderall, take it. No, just kidding. But in all seriousness, like I would get to that to-do list and I'd be like, oh my gosh, I got so much stuff to do. Okay, I'm going to start with number 1, and then I'm going to move number 2, and then move number 3. So I think you retrain your brain some. But also I think, and I've got a video on this on my YouTube channel. It's called the 7-Figure Principles Show, but it's all about how ADD is a superpower. And so I think, and I'm kind of speaking out of both sides of my mouth here, but I really believe this is I think too many kids, we tell them to sit down, shut up, stop talking, stop. And we prescribe them these pills at a young age, which I think is not healthy. Like hindsight, I think I started it in college and, I think that was helpful for me personally, but it was my decision. It wasn't someone saying, you're not good enough, here's this pill. And so I think, I think it's super important that we realize that as an entrepreneur or just as a human being, that, ADD is a superpower and there's a lot of benefits that come from it. And you can use this to fuel creativity, to fuel what you're doing. But you also got to realize okay, how do I live with this in a way that's productive? And so I think the flip side, the benefit of having it is it forced me to be super simple with things and to be really focused and just know that all right, cool. I just pretty much need to focus on one thing at a time. And I also need to keep things super simple. So, and guess what? Well, that's also just really good life principles in general. But that's spurred on, I think, by the fact that I have ADD. So it's using ADD for the superpower that it is to focus you on what matters most.
That's awesome. And so just aside from that, and then we'll get back, I have a couple other things I want to ask you because we could talk forever because you are awesome. And that is relationships and ADHD. Like, because we move at a different pace, it's sort of like, so you as a CEO with a lot of people that work for you, and you drive an unbelievable team. Like, it's so bloody talented, that group of people you have. Is it like, do you have to basically like say, hey, you know, this is how I am? Like, do you lead with what your expectations are? How do you manage it as a CEO, as a creative, a super successful, focused kind of guy? What's the challenges and challenges for you on that?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I think obviously very blessed to have just amazing people, an amazing team, and a lot of which you've been able to interact with and work with, and they're just awesome. I think one of the most important things that for me to remember, and for anyone to remember, is that like leadership is about them. It's not about you. So it's about helping people to develop and become the best versions of themselves. So I think that's why people come to self-publishing school, is because they see, oh, like my job is to help people become the best version of themselves, whether it's comfortable or uncomfortable. And a lot of times that means having uncomfortable, challenging conversations and corrective conversations. And I think in the early days, I shied away from that. But really being frank and being direct with people. And then I'd say, like, from a relational standpoint, like I think recognizing strengths and weaknesses. And I think overall, I'm generally decent with relationships, but not amazing. And so I think also knowing that, like, I've often brought in people into my organization that are very nurturing, because that's not me.
Yeah, well, you have
And
Pedro and Sean and Lee.
Yeah.
And so that's because I love the Strength Finder. And I think you're like competition achiever, like you're me, right? Where our relational strengths aren't our leaders. It's inspirational. Strategic. And we have to learn the skill of relational. But, you know, we can do it, but it's like, oh, okay, we have to say that, you know, it's a skill set, you know?
Yeah. So you learn the skill, and then you also surround yourself with people who cover up those weaknesses, right? So like for me, I know that, like, all right, I need to lead a handful of people in the organization, and I need to lead them really well and be very strong relationally with those folks, and then pour into them so that they can pour into other people. And then wherever possible, support others so that they know that they're supported, they are supported, but really like focus a lot of the relational thing. Cause it's just, as the company continues to grow, I mean, if I have one-off conversations every day with 30 people, I'm never going to get anything done. So I think there's that, but then I think I've also always been blessed in the sense of like, and blessed / just also been very intentional of like having nurturing people on the team that can be like kind of my eyes and ears in the field, but also be like, hey, yeah, like Chandler doesn't mean that, you know, he loves you. He thinks you're awesome. Like, you're doing a great job. We really appreciate you. Like that nurturing person that's like, you know, when I just bulldoze through and leave
that is the freaking best. Well, I met
you there to help.
I met your mom. So clearly your mom,
she's telling me that,
loves you, and there's so much love. So you were birthed through a pretty beautiful energy. So that certainly helps. You have a good mom.
She's amazing. My parents are amazing. My brother's amazing. Just very blessed to have an awesome and supportive family. And so my mom certainly challenges me to be more caring and to be empathetic and to all those things, for sure.
Right. That's awesome. So Chandler, we also talked about this, and I just want to touch into this because you're a really driven, positive, you know, go-getting person and a creative, like all of these things. But sometimes the perception of that is that things come easy to you, Chandler, that, oh yeah, everything Chandler touches, you know, and what do you say to that?
I'd say, you know, one of my mentors one time told me, he said, Chandler, it takes 10 years to become an overnight success. And I think people see the destination and they don't see the journey. And it's like the iceberg principle, right? It's like you see the tip of the iceberg, you don't see all the stuff that's underneath it. So, well, sure, like I certainly have had advantages in life, like 100%. I have, you know, I have an amazing family, amazing support system. So like my foundation undoubtedly is just like better than other people's, and not in like I'm better than other people, but and like I know that I have an unfair advantage. I love this video. It's this guy. He takes his class out into a field. I think it's teachers, and he says, "We're going to race for $100, and we're going to do a race." He said, "Now step forward if you had, if you had both parents in the home. Step forward if you had blah, blah, blah. Step forward if you never had to worry about being hungry. Step forward if like all those things." And then he says, and then at the end, you see all like some people who are like way up front. And then he's like, "Okay, cool. Now we're still going to race for the $100. And basically like just acknowledging that life isn't fair. There is privilege, and you still have the ability to run the race. And so like, I definitely recognize that like my starting point was just, I think, ahead of a lot of people. But also like that, like it really, I think it's like what's in between your ears, because like there's a lot of people who being broke, it like you got to have a reason or a motivation. Like sometimes that really feeds you. And so I think I had that, and I have like a ridiculous work ethic. So for me, like that's the differentiator. And I would say that nothing ever really came easy, but it maybe looked easy because of how hard I was working.
So you came out of the box a hard worker?
I'm sure my parents and my brother would say no. It's probably more nurture than nature.
Yeah.
But I mean, my parents taught me to work hard. And
Right.
if my dad came home and on a afternoon or weekend, and I was inside watching TV, my butt was getting to work. And he would find. He said he was always saying, "If you don't want to be outside, I'll find work for you to do."
Yeah. Oh my
And so it's
God.
like, we're not going to watch TV. We're not going to play video games. Like I certainly went through a video game phase, but like, and so he taught me to work hard. My mom taught me to work hard. My brother taught me to work hard. It's like, commit to goals and work hard in the pursuit of those goals, and of getting better and all that stuff. So I think that combined with, just a bunch of life experiences and a bunch of just along the way, you learn stuff and you get reinvigorated, and you say, all right, I'm in pursuit of this thing, and I'm really passionate about this thing. So I'm going to keep doing it. Cause for me personally, like I could pretty much stop working now and be good. But I choose to do what I do because I love to do it, and because it's a lot of fun for me. And for me, business is the infinite game. It's the thing that you can never really win. Like there's no like, oh, I'm done. There's always ways to improve. And so that's a whole lot of fun.
Well, it's also too that image that you had about, like having people in that lineup and having like people way in the back, maybe still at the starting line, right?
Oh,
and then there's the more fortunate that are up ahead. Well, isn't this game all about stepping aside, reaching out your hand, and helping those people behind you? I mean, that's ultimately business, right? It's ultimately,
100%.
yeah, it's like, I've met a lot of people that you couldn't imagine writing a book, right?
Yep.
And they yearn for it, Chandler. I mean, you see it all the time in your business. People yearn to be heard. So in what way are we showing up, giving voice to the yearning?
Yeah. 100%.
In whatever we do.
100%.
Yeah, I love it. So what would you give for the viewers listening to this? What would you give for recommendations on how to get it done? Where's their portal to play with you?
Yeah, I'd say probably. Well, I mean, we got a bunch of resources that'll be helpful. One of we've got a pillar post on the blog that's how to write a book, and that's probably one of the first and best places to start. We've got our book outline template generator, which is awesome. And it's like a literally copy and paste, like duplicate the Google, press a couple of buttons, duplicate the word, the Google Doc, and it's a 25-page Google Doc that you can just fill in the blanks. That's a really helpful resource. You can get a copy of my book published for free on the site as well. And those are a couple of the main and best places to start. But really, when you get started, like the number one thing that matters the most, and I'm sure you heard me talk about this and heard this from your coach and all that stuff. It's like, get your rough draft done. Nothing matters until you get the rough draft done. So laser focus on getting the rough draft done. And then that's when that's when it really starts to transition from I'm thinking about doing this thing to I'm doing this thing.
Right.
And so really when you're getting started, laser focus on the rough draft.
And the classes, I swear to God, this happened. I was Saturday afternoon laying on my couch, whatever, just clicking on YouTube. And I saw one of your videos and I was like, wait a minute. And I like, bye. Like, I was like, oh my God, what did I just do? Like literally it was that spontaneous. And then I got my welcome package and I wrote you guys a thank you note because I loved it. And literally it was that spontaneous. And it was, I cannot believe how the guiding, the way that it guided me through the process, the video instruction, the detailed instruction to someone who is not tech savvy. This is why we hang out with younger people. This is why we play with people who have companies that are a younger generation, because these are the trendsetters. These are the people that know more, that are taking over. And so we need to learn as much as we can from them. And I'm honored to be a coach of many young people because that's where I prefer to play. And honestly, I think I'm still 17.
You are.
Yeah, your material's sick, Chandler.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Kate. So was there anything else, any other tips you'd like to share, or any words of wisdom for our viewers?
Oh man, I would just say, one of the most important things for me with stuff like this is, and I had a mentor, early on in business who his advice was listen and do it. And so you've listened to this podcast, now do it. So like, what are the things that you can take away and then you can implement? And if you're not taking notes, if you're not, like taking next steps, like I have to-do lists just everywhere because it's like, how do we take what we learn, take what we apply, and then the speed to action. And you hear me talk about this all the time in the accelerator group, Kate. It's like the speed to failure is often one of the most important things. And that's one of our core values of self-publishing school is fail fast, fail forward, fail often. So, the faster that you fail, the faster that you learn. So implement what you're learning, fail as quickly as possible, learn from that failure. And failure is really just a feedback loop. And then you get better, you iterate and improve.
What?
Yeah, failure is really just a feedback loop.
A feedback loop. I love that. And I love Les Brown. He's one of my favorite motivational speakers, but he says, just make sure, he goes, life, it'll knock you down.
Yep.
Just make sure you fall on your back.
On your back. Because if you look up, you can get up. Yes.
Yes, that is the best. Literally, that's my motto. So fail fast, fail often. Yeah.
Love that.
Well, Chandler, thank you so much for being with us today. I really appreciate you. It's been a real honor. And thank you.
Yes, Kate, thank you so much for having me. So exciting seeing what you're doing, seeing what you're building, both with this podcast, with your business, all the things that are on the horizon. The best is yet to come.
Let's go. Thank you so much. And take care. And again, thank you for joining Survive to Thrive. And we'll see you again.